Hello everyone, welcome to our talk Understanding and Predicting Characteristics of Text Collection in Information Retrieval. I am MD Mustafizur Rahman and the honorable co-author of this paper are also Mujahid Kudlu and Matt Lees. So this is the outline of our presentation. In the background, we'll talk about some basics regarding information retrievals, which cover text collections and pooling. Then we'll talk about our main contribution of this paper then which will be followed by experimental evaluations and conclusions. So now let's talk about some basics that we need to understand to fully understand the rest of the slides here. So what is an information retrieval systems? So in our day-to-day life, that the different kind of search engine that we use, for example, Google is an information retrieval system, and the search query that we put here is actually known as search query information retrieval nomenclature. Um, when you provide the search query, Google has these collections of web document, which is typically known as document collection in IR domain, and Google actually provide you a rank list of document, right? It is highlighted. For example, School of Information is returning two document 1 and document 2. This is known as document ranking in IR domain. And how do you know Google is actually providing a better performance for this search query? Here comes the human annotation. So for this search query Q1, suppose we have document D1 and D2, which is known, and suppose we collect the relevant judgment from the annotator, and D1 is relevant and D2 is non-relevant. So a text collection is basically a set of search query, a document collections, and a corresponding human judgment for every search query and document pairs. Now let's take a look what is the challenge here. So obviously since we are collecting human judgment, so the main challenge is the scalability. So as of today there are 4.2 billion web pages and there are huge number of search queries. So to annotate all these documents for a single query itself is already pretty much expensive. So now think about how that thing get multiplied, how that cost get multiplied when you have a huge number of search query and huge number of web pages. So we have this spectrum, right, that cover both the cost and reliability. So in one end, what we can do is basically we can judge nothing. In that case, there will be no cost. But the problem is that um, um, our judgment, our evolution will be unreliable. On the other end of the spectrum, what we can try to judge everything, which is actually infeasible, right? And even if we can do it, actually, in that case that will be a reliable evolution. So what typical researchers do in this domain is basically try to find a balance between this cost and reliability of a test collection, and that is the ultimate goal in developing a test collection that is reliable and yet cost effective. Now let's take a look how researchers in this domain develop a low cost and reliable test collection. There are a nice insight here they typically apply. The insight is basically there is only very few documents which are relevant to a search query. So rather than annotating all the document for a search query, we'll annotate only those which are likely to be relevant. And this is the standard practice that has been done by the text retrieval conference organized by National Institute of Science and Technology for the last 30 years. So this is the outline. So you have a document collection that can contain thousands of documents, millions of documents, but you have some intelligent document selection strategy, and then you only annotate those set of documents that you selected using this intelligent selection process. So now let's take a look what are the traditional approaches in IR to develop a test collection. So the idea is that in this information retrieval domain, typically their organizer actually organize a shared task and then they apply pooling to select document for annotations. Now let's take a look what is a shared task. So as I mentioned, organize a shared task. So organizers typically collect all a huge set of document. It could be suppose all the document from the Wikipedia, and they also define a set of search topics or search query. Typically in a text retrieval conference that is in the range between 50 to hundreds. And then they ask the participant that, hey, we have this search query and we have this document collection. Can you rank all these documents for each of the search query? Now, when the participant want to participate, they have to develop a search system, right? For example, Google, Microsoft Bing, Yahoo, whatever it is. Now, each of these participants then, once they develop the search engine or information retrieval system, they submit their rank list of document for each of these search query, right? And what the organizer typically do, they just combine the top tier rank document from each of this rank list of document, and that is called pool document. And they judge this pool document using human annotation, and and then they use this judgment to evaluate the participating IR system. Okay. Now let's take a look at one example. Suppose we have this document collection that contains 5 documents denoted as D1 up until D5. Suppose you have only one search query, and suppose you have two partition system, Microsoft Bing and Google. Now suppose Google and Bing return this rank list of document, right? For example, Google rank document 1 at rank position 1, Bing rank document 3 at rank position 1. So now suppose organizer decided that they will pull only the top 3 rank document, right? So if you pull this document together, you will see there are in total 4 unique document in the rank list of both Google and Bing. So this is the pool list of document, and you see pooling is basically filtering out the document D5 because that does not appears in any of the top 3 rank documents. So pooling is basically selecting a subset of document that are likely to be relevant, right? And then how do we evaluate? So basically we have this pool of documents. So we ask the human recruiter to provide judgment. And suppose this is a toy judgment set where only D1 document is relevant. Now if we apply, if we take a look at the rank list of the document from Google and Bing, you would find that you can visually say that Google is actually better because Google is ranking the only relevant document from the left hand side table at the top, whereas Bing is actually is worse. So average position, mathematically if we calculate, Google has average position 1, Bing has average position 1 by 3. So the evolution result is Google is better than Bing, and this is the ultimate outcome of using a test collection, the ranking of the IR systems. Okay, now let's talk about the underlying factors related to pooling. So basically what I shown to you in the previous slide, we're applying pooling and developing a test collection, but there are lots of underlying factors going on, and this factor actually determines the quality of the test collection. For example, the number of search topic, right? How many search topic do you need? Do you need 50? Do you need 100? So there is a study from Spart Jones and Van Riesen, and they mentioned that 250 topic is enough. Now the next topic is that the next underlying factor is the pool depth, right? So should we use large pool depth? Should we use small pool depth? So this is one of the another study done by Carteret in 2018, is that he is saying that when you have large number of topic, um, shallow pool depth is better than less number of topic and higher pool depth, right? Now then the types of system, for example, should we take only manual system or should we take automatic system, right? I'll talk about what is top manual and automatic system in the following slide, and then also the collection size. So now the thing is that what people have not investigated yet is that how this all these factors actually has a combining effect when you have a varying number of participating system, and this is the main goal of this research article that we publish in this. So what is our research question is that how does the number of participants interact with other factors to influence the quality of test collection? And our next research question is that can we predict the quality of a test collection prior to collecting the relevant judgment? So this is our experimental setup. So this is an algorithms. So what this algorithm is actually doing, we're taking, suppose we're taking one of the existing test collections, and we use that test collection to rank all the participating system, and then we evaluate those participating system. And this is happening in on line 1, in between line 1 and 3. Next, what we're doing is that we have this test collection that we started with, right? And we can actually randomly generate different kind of pseudo test collection, because for example, just take 2 systems, just take 4 system, and we are actually representing this thing as a group, because when the participant actually participate in the shared task, they might submit multiple things. So we are actually multiple IR systems, so actually doing the sampling over the group. Then for each of these pseudo test collection, we can also rank all the participating system, and then we can calculate a correlation between the original ranking of the system and the ranking of the system obtained from the pseudo rank. And in this way we can calculate all the factors that we want to measure, right? So experimental setup, we have data set. We tried on 6 different test collection. As you can see in the table, we have tried 14, we have tried 13, we also have robust 04, and you can see there are varying number of topic, and the document collection number of they have different kind of pool depth. So all the different experiment that we want to run. And performance metrics, we actually measure the reusability using rank correlation, and we measure the rank correlation using tau correlation. So this is our first set of experiment where we want to understand how varying the topics actually interact with the varying number of group. And in this x-axis, we are representing the group number, increasing number of group. In the y-axis, we are representing the tau correlations. These are occurring, um, and as you can see, each of this line is actually representing how many number of topic we are actually using to develop the test collection. And the whole we compare this curve using the AUC, which is area under the curve, and we report two different metrics. One is tau and this max drop. If you consider tau, you see the area under the curve is actually not changing. For example, 50 topic we have 124.6 and 249 topic we have 124.9. So to summarize, um, basically increasing the number of topic does not improve the test collection reusability, and this finding is still true if we apply the max drop. Next, we want to understand how pool depth, varying pool depth has any effect. And we have this fixed number of topic like 50, 150, 250. And again, if we consider the area under the curve, you will see if we keep increasing the pool depth, this AUC is actually increasing, and this is significant, right? And this is the same kind of trend across all different number of topics. So our finding is that for a given fixed number of topic, increasing the pool depth will is actually improve the reusability of a test collection, because you see with pool depth 100 we are getting the best AUC, right? The last experimental result that we want to show, as I mentioned, we want to know what if we just simply develop a test collection using manual run, or what if we simply develop test collection using automatic run. So manual run is that set of run where some kind of human intervention is actually going on there to develop the IR system. In the automatic run is fully automated. So our finding is that this is in the left side, we are actually combining both manual and automatic run, and we are representing represent the number again in terms of tau correlations. And as you can see, when you have a very few number of group and that group do contains manual run, we're actually receiving tau correlation pretty much fast, right? On the other hand, if you consider the right hand side where we have only automatic run, uh, for a very small number of group like 1, 3, 5, the result is pretty bad, right? So our finding is that uh, it is always better to have as much as possible manual run to develop reusable test collections. So now the next thing, can you estimate the quality of a test collection? Why? Because this is important, because organizer can estimate the quality of test collection before collecting the relevant judgment. So our prediction model is basically a multiple linear regression model. These are the independent variable and these are the dependent variable. Uh, So the performance is basically we do cross validation across test collection, and we measure the mean square error between the original and predicted test collection using Kendall's tau. And this is the table representing the result. As you can see, um, the mean square error is very small for almost every row except the third row, where the training set does not share the same document collection with the testing set, where the mean square error is a little bit higher. So our conclusion is that reusability of test collection greatly varies with the number of participants in a shared task, and we can actually predict the reusability of a test collection with better accuracy if the underlying document collection between the training set and test set is same. Okay, that's all. Thanks for your time. Any questions?